Can I start by asking, in your view, is this a lone attacker or was there a wider plot?
Well, good morning, Andrew. What we're hearing from the police is that they believe it's a lone attacker, but it's an ongoing investigation. They're still collecting evidence about his journey, the people he's spoken to, the contacts he made, so we can't be completely conclusive about that yet. But as we find out more from the investigation, I think that's what it'll confirm.
Now, what we do know is that there was a WhatsApp contact just before he launched the attack. And if we knew what that contact was, what he said and to whom, we'd know a lot more. But as I understand it, I use WhatsApp. It's encrypted at both ends. And if you tap on the WhatsApp system, it tells you that. So you know that the security services, you know the Home Office is never going to see what you do. I can show you what it says here. Messages you send to this chat and calls are now secured with end-to-end encryption. Tap for more info, and if you tap, it tells you you will be completely safe. Nobody will ever see. And that is what a lot of people think terrorists and others are using. Can I put it to you that that situation is now completely unacceptable?
That is my view. It is completely unacceptable. There should be no place for terrorists to hide. We need to make sure that organisations like WhatsApp, and there are plenty of others like that, don't provide a secret place for terrorists to communicate with each other. It used to be that people would steam open envelopes or just listen in on phones when they wanted to find out what people were doing legally through warrantry. But on this situation, we need to make sure that our intelligence services have the ability to get into situations like encrypted WhatsApp.
So this is exactly the same argument that's going on between Apple and the FBI in Washington, where Tim Cook of Apple has so far said that they're not going to allow the American authorities to open a back door into their products. And yet if they don't do that, then this end-to-end encryption continues. So do you think that the British government and the American government have to take on the big internet companies and force them to open up their devices?
But if I was talking to Tim Cook, I would say to him, this is something completely different. We're not saying open up, we don't want to go into the cloud, we don't want to do all sorts of things like that, but we do want them to recognise that they have a responsibility to engage with government, to engage with the law enforcement agencies when there is a terrorist situation. We would do it all through the carefully thought through, legally covered arrangements, but they cannot get away with saying we are a different situation. They are not.
But they say no. I mean, Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, it would be wrong for the government to force us to build a backdoor into our products. And yet, without that, you can't find out what you need to find out.
Well, I would ask Tim Cook to think again about other ways of finding out, of helping us work out how we can get into the situations like WhatsApp on the Apple phone. It's not necessarily Apple itself. Sometimes it's WhatsApp or the other situations on it, which is why I'm calling in a lot of the organisations who are relevant to that this week to ask them to work with us to deliver the answer. It's not about them standing back from us. This is a national problem.
Can I just ask who you're calling in?
Well, I'd rather not go into that, but it's a fairly long list, but it's also some of the smaller companies as well, to make sure that there's no hiding place for terrorists. I want to make sure that everybody takes responsibility for this.
OK, but at the moment, there's plenty of hiding places. If, for instance, WhatsApp say, no, we're not going to end-to-end encryption, we're going to allow those messages to carry on being encrypted, will you legislate to force them to change their mind?
I don't see that.
You may have to.
Well, I do agree that we have to have a situation where we can have our security services get into the terrorist communications. That's absolutely the case. So, of course, I will have those conversations and we will see where they go.
Because this is a big selling point for them. You know, they advertise this as a positive virtue of their systems. If they're going to change, they're not going to want to change. You're going to have to make them change.
But I think I need to set it out clearly for them. I'm not saying that I want to get into your WhatsApp, Andrew. What I'm saying,
you're very welcome.
What I'm saying is that where there are situations where there are ongoing investigations with terrorists, I mean, these people have families, have children as well. They should be on our side, and I'm going to try and win that argument.